WWE had a Black Friday last week as they released 4 names from the company, and that included 3 wrestlers and 1 backstage agent. And what you had was releases that I think were a combination of surprising and very expecting. And I think 3 of the 4 we all knew would happen. One of them even asked for his release a few weeks ago. And Dillinger and Itami, who were both released, both asked for their releases. So we knew that would happen. TJP, he didn't ask for his release, but I don't think it's a major shock to see him be released. He's just no good. And Arn Anderson was definitely the big shock. And I'll start there. They announced Arn Anderson was released from the company on Friday, which came as a big surprise. I was stunned. Like, really? Arn Anderson? He's one of the head guys backstage. He has so much influence. He's such a legend in the business. And what happened was Dave Meltzer reported on his radio show that Vince and Arn Anderson, they basically got into a huge shouting match. They yelled at each other, and Vince was so mad that he decided to fire him. Now, reportedly, they've had tensions before that. There was problems in which Arn was always not keen on Vince's ideas. There was problems between the two, so this was building up for a while, but it all boiled over into a huge shouting match. This past week, I don't know exactly the day, but there was a huge shouting match, and Vince McMahon fired Arn Anderson. He sent him home, and then he fired him. So this was definitely a surprise. I think most people were also really surprised of the timing. Tonight is Ric Flair's birthday. He's 70 years old, by the way. Happy birthday, Ric Flair. He's 70. Most people are thinking Arn Anderson has to be a part of Ric Flair's birthday celebration. The two of them were best friends for so many years. And reportedly, they're not as close as they once were. And that has to do more with Ric Flair's marriage falling apart. Arn Anderson and his wife were very close. Ric's second wife, I believe, his ex-wife, they were really close, and that's what led to friction. But they're not as close as they used to be. You would expect for sure Arn had to be at the birthday celebration. It would have been Arn and Tully, not Ole because he's an asshole, but all the 4 horsemen. I think with Barry Windham, it depends on whichever horseman incarnation is your favorite, but you would expect they'd have to be there, and J.J. Dillon would be there too. So that was definitely a surprise that when you found out there wasn't going to be a horseman reunion for Rick's birthday. And this also brings a conversation that WWE basically handed AEW an agent. I'm sure Arn Anderson will be hired by AEW very soon, but I don't think it's a huge deal. I mean, Billy Gunn's there. It's a backstage agent. It's not so much what's going to happen. I don't think they're much keen on Arn's ideas anyway. I think he might have more of an old school mindset, so I don't think WWE's losing a lot, but it is unfortunate. I mean, he's such such an integral guy. He's been there since 2001, since WCW went under, so it's definitely a surprise. But they had a huge fight, and Vince McMahon reportedly made the decision that he's never going to bring back Arn Anderson again. So that's according to Dave Meltzer, so things got really bad there between the two. The next guy who was released was someone who requested his release last Tuesday right after SmackDown ended, and that's Tye Dillinger. Tye Dillinger was somebody who I never looked at as a star. I looked at someone whose gimmick was more over than him. And his gimmick was the whole 10 thing. The 10 count was over. He was not over. Tye Dillinger was never over. I don't think the fans in NXT ever really cared about Tye Dillinger. I certainly don't think that whenever he came on the main roster, when he was really over with the 10 gimmick, that the fans actually cared about him as a wrestler. They loved the 10 gimmick. They loved chanting 10. Then I hated when they ever did those count outs and they just chant 10 every single time the referee would count. It could be 1, 10. That was really annoying. The 10 gimmick was over. They did a whole thing in the Royal Rumble, I think, in 2017. When he came out as number 10, he got a huge pop, and that's really where he peaked. The 10 gimmick was over. I never looked at Tye Dillinger as anything. I never thought he'd be a star. Remember when he first debuted on SmackDown? I never looked at him as a star. He's been in developmental for a long time. He was released, and he was brought up to the main roster in NXT, then he was cut. He came back, he had to go back to development until this time it was NXT, and he finally got a second chance. It just didn't work out. He's 38 years old. He just got engaged. He's engaged to Peyton Royce, so he's a very lucky man. I don't know. I'm sure Peyton Royce is not thrilled about this. I mean, he had a good thing. He's with his fiance. They are on the same show. They're traveling together probably. You see her at work. I mean, the one big thing with couples is sometimes they're on separate shows. One's on Raw, one's on SmackDown. They're both on SmackDown. They're making money. I'm sure he's not killing it, but I mean, he's making good money just being on the road with WWE all day. I think this is, I don't know. I mean, it's clearly a career decision. It's not a money decision. Not a personal decision, but will he go to AEW? I know him and Cody are very close, so I think that's most likely where he's going. I originally thought Impact because he's from Canada, and Impact's basically a Canadian company now, so I was thinking he'd go to Impact more than anything at first, but then I found out how close him and Cody are, so I think you'll see him in AEW as a utility player. Do I think he's a star in AEW? Not really. Do I think he's a top guy? No, but as a utility guy, as a good hand, I think I can see him there. That's his next destination is AEW. His run on the main roster, he just never really got anything. Like, it's just completely forgettable. What did he ever do? Does anyone remember any Tye Dillinger feud? He was there for, 2 years? He got called up SmackDown, and a couple days after WrestleMania 33, he did nothing for 2 years. Just float there, just a job guy, just enhancement talent. That's exactly what I saw Tye Dillinger as. And he clearly didn't want that, and that's his decision. But Tye Dillinger requested his release, and it was granted Friday. Next guy was someone who requested his release 2 weeks ago, and that was maybe 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks ago, Hideo Itami. We saw this coming a while away. It's just an extremely unfortunate situation for Kenta Kobashi, Hideo, whatever you want to call him. His WWE career was a complete bust, and it was mostly on him, and I can't say it's on the company at all. It has to go on him. It's not his work, it's just his injury. I mean, he just got injured, some bad luck too. What happened was he was pushed heavily in NXT. I remember when they first brought him in on the third takeover on Fatal 4-Way. NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way in 2014. He makes his debut. He destroys the Ascension in his contract agreement. And then ever since that, I think once Finn Balor came in, he was completely overshadowed by Balor. But they were still pushing Itami. And I think when he got hurt, and that he was supposed to be, I think it was in TakeOver Unstoppable, it was going to be him, Finn Balor, and Tyler Breeze in a triple threat number 1 contenders match. He gets hurt. Balor beats Breeze. And ever since then, he never recovered because of his injury. We never followed up what his injury, who hurt him. It was a shoulder injury, I believe it was. But they never told us how, in storyline, what happened, because they showed him laid out in a parking lot. They showed Kevin Owens walking by. I want to finish that feud. Who took out Hideo Itami? Was it Kevin Owens? Can we just say that already? I mean, I want to know it. They never got to follow up on that. And he was gone for about a year and a half. He came back, and, the problem was, the reason he was out for so long was because he started to have, after the surgery, he was starting to have bad symptoms of it, and he had to miss more time. He wasn't healing properly. He comes back finally, then he gets hurt a second time. He misses even more time. He has a brief feud with Bobby Roode, and he gets called up to the main roster. It was 205 Live, and it was a disaster. He did nothing. I thought they can give him the title. He was nothing there. It was just a complete disaster. Injuries, extremely unfortunate. Ending to a career I thought was supposed to be very promising. They had Hulk Hogan in Japan offer him his contract, and it never worked out for the guy. So it's unfortunate, but I'm sure he was granted his release because he's not going to AEW. You won't see him in All Elite Wrestling. I think he's going back to Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. I don't think he'll go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it's Noah. He'll continue his career there. He'll move his family back to Japan, and it just didn't work out in the WWE for Kenta Kobashi. So it was unfortunate, but it didn't go his way. The next one was what I think most people were happy to see go was TJP. So TJ Perkins, whatever you want to call him. His biggest claim to fame was winning the first ever Cruiserweight Classic, which he never should have won. He had no business winning, and the reason he won was because Kota Ibushi decided not to sign a contract with the WWE, and he is, I believe, with New Japan. Now, he's been a free agent. That's what Ibushi does. He doesn't want to sign a damn contract, but Kota Ibushi won't commit anywhere, so they had to beat him, and they couldn't have him win the Cruiserweight Classic because they need someone to win who's going to be with them, and Kota Ibushi did not go to the WWE, so they had to have Ibushi lose to TJP, which was not a good decision. Ibushi is so much better than TJP in every single possible way, and Perkins was never over. When he won the Cruiserweight title, he just never got over there. The feud of Brian Kendrick absolutely sucked. It was fucking horrible. And I believe they just had him lose the title to Kendrick, and then the division was a boss. And I think part of the reason the division sucks is because of him. And maybe the company holds him responsible for that. I think had you had an enticing Cruiserweight champion, maybe 205 Live would have been better, because you can never make a first impression. You don't have a second chance to make a first impression. And I think with him, he was a shitty champion. He was in no personality, just absolutely horrific on the mic. He was boring as hell. I could not stand him. And I think he killed the brand before it really got to get off the ground. So I blame him for 205's Live's failures. It was a disaster. He sucks. I thought that guy was fucking horrible. It's his dream to be the WWE. Well, he just didn't cut it. So, by TJP, the reason I think he was really released was he went on this Twitter rant, I think last Monday, or maybe it been a week before, just ripping everyone, acting like a child. The guy's just no good. So, he's gone. Those are your 4 releases. And before that, I want to talk about Raw, which is coming up later tonight. You have one of the more anticipated Monday Night Raws in a while. This is the first Raw that really feels like it's WrestleMania season. This feels like a major show, mainly because of 2 things. You have Roman Reigns coming out to give us an update on his health status. There are some people saying, will he be ready for WrestleMania? I can't imagine that, because you have to continue your cancer treatment. That's one of the situations with having cancer, even if he gets a remission in which he'll be okay. He still has to continue his treatment, all the treatment he started. So I can't see him being ready for WrestleMania. Is it possible? SummerSlam? Possibly, but I think we're going to get good news. I'd be shocked to see him back wrestling. And then the bigger one, or maybe I don't know if you call it bigger, but the bigger angle, most likely, is Ric Flair's 70th birthday, which is in Atlanta. It's unfortunate because SmackDown's in Charlotte. I could have just done it in Charlotte because his actual birthday is today. But if they could have delayed it one more day in Charlotte, it would have just been perfect. It's they decided to go with Atlanta. I don't get it. Just do it in Charlotte. But it's going to be a huge angle. Charlotte will be there. I think Sting is going to be there. Ricky Steamboat. Some of his biggest rivalries. No Arn Anderson, obviously. But you'll see some of his biggest rivals there. I don't think we'll see Hulk Hogan, but you never know. What's going to happen is Becky Lynch, she might come out of the cake. I hope Becky pops out of the cake. I think that'd be the best part. If you have a giant cake and Becky jumps out of it, but we'll see that. So you have 2 big segments. Raw is a pretty anticipated Raw in quite some time. So the road to WrestleMania is really heating up.